Hey, it's Dr. McLean with Vital Energy Chiropractic. So our autonomic nervous system, and our autonomic nervous system means things that we do automatically. We don't have to think about them. Digestion, heart rate, breathing, things like that. Our autonomic nervous system is split up into two different areas. We have what's called a parasympathetic nervous system, and we have the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is often called rest and digest. The sympathetic nervous system is often called fight or flight. So when we're feeling stressed about something or anxious or we feel threatened, the sympathetic nervous system is going to kick in and get us ready to fight or flight, to handle that stress. Even if that stress might be a work deadline or a financial problem, your nervous system doesn't know the difference. So it's going to raise your heart rate, it's going to raise your blood pressure, it's going to slow digestion. It's going to do everything again to shift energy to your limbs. So again, you can get ready for a fight or flight. It's going to narrow your focus on that enemy. So this is really good if we're actually threatened in a threatening situation. So you can see if you want to focus in on that enemy, the problem is if you're trying to solve, let's say, a financial problem or a work situation, or you're trying to have a civil debate on politics or medications or something like that, and you're focused, you can't do critical thinking. We want to be able to open up that focus. So the sympathetic state creates and produces a very good result for certain situations. But we don't want to spend the majority of our time there. We want to spend the majority of our time in our parasympathetic dominant state. So the challenge is today is that we can produce this sympathetic state just by thinking about something. We see something online that makes us mad, it can trigger this sympathetic dominant state. We get concerned about finances or our relationships. Again, we can trigger this sympathetic dominant state. We can also trigger that, or should say shut it down or move more into that parasympathetic state by breathing and using our thoughts and things like that. The problem is because our stress levels have went up so much, or at least the way that we respond to these stresses, that a lot of people now are spending time in that sympathetic state and they get into what's called a sympathetic dominant state, which is not where we want to spend most of our time. It's just like if you're driving down the road, if you're driving a car, you get up to speed, you're lightly pushing on the gas, you're maintaining that speed limit of 25 or 30 miles an hour. Versus if you just hit the gas as hard as you can until you catch the car in front of you, and then you slam on the brakes. And then you hit on the gas, and then you slam on the brakes. That wouldn't be so good for your engine, and it's not so good for our nervous system, and not so good for our health. So if we're in the sympathetic dominant state, we can have a lot of things that start to get produced because our body's getting ready for a fight. Again, we're slowing down digestion, so we can produce constipation or bloatiness. It can create sugar cravings, right? Because you need more energy to get ready for this fight or flight, so it can really throw off your hormones that way. It can produce upper back and neck pain. It can produce high blood pressure or a racing heart or just the feeling that you just can't relax. And again, this affects our decisions in every area of our life. So the challenge is we start to produce these symptoms, and then we produce, because we see all the commercials on TV saying that you're supposed to feel perfectly, you're not supposed to have any of these symptoms, and we go and take antidepressant medication or an anti-anxiety medication, or we take a digestive medication. And so we don't want to have those symptoms, I understand that, and I'm not saying we should have high blood pressure, but if we take a high blood pressure medication, but we don't address the cause of the problem, we didn't solve anything, and we're actually going to produce more problems. Because if you take a medication that's trying to lower that, artificially trying to lower that blood pressure, your nervous system says, whoa, 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 we're trying to keep that blood pressure up to get you ready for this fight. What's going on? And your nervous system is going to fight against this medication. So again, we want to go back to addressing the cause of the problem. So again, with chiropractic, we're not treating sympathetic dominant states, but we are doing is removing interference from the nervous system. And the research clearly shows that will move you more into a parasympathetic dominant state. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't also take action in other areas of your life, but if you get the pressure off your nerves, you're going to be more likely to go into that parasympathetic dominant state. So that's one of the things that you can do to address the cause of the problem. So I just caution you when you're having these symptoms, especially those specific symptoms, to be careful of not just taking a medication. Try to explore what the cause is. And if you want more help in this, I've got all sorts of tips and techniques. I'd love to talk about this. I've done a lot of research in this area.